Look closely at the man, not the legend etched into celluloid, not the fearless protector in the Bodyguard, nor the visionary whose passion birthed Dances with Wolves. No, look past the myth, beyond the golden age of Hollywood he so effortlessly embodied. What do you see when you peer into the eyes of Kevin Costner today, as he stands on the cusp of his seventh decade? Do you still see the unyielding strength, the quiet confidence that defined a generation of cinema? Or do you sense a subtle shift, a hidden vulnerability beneath that famously stoic exterior, hinting at a storm few could ever imagine, a heartbreak that money, fame, or even multiple Oscars cannot possibly shield him from? Kevin Costner wasn't just an actor, he was and remains a cultural touchstone. He was the quintessential leading man, embodying a distinctly American spirit of resilience, integrity, and a certain rugged individualism that Hollywood perhaps hasn't truly seen since. He commanded the screen with a quiet intensity, a knowing smile, and a moral compass that seemed unshakable. A beacon of authenticity in an often artificial world. From the dusty, dream-laden fields of Iowa in Field of Dreams, where he dared us to believe in the impossible, to the epic landscapes of the American frontier he masterfully painted in his directorial magnum opus, Dances with Wolves, a film that didn't just win 7 Academy Awards, but fundamentally altered the landscape of American cinema. Costner didn't just play characters, he became them, imbuing each role with a piece of his own formidable soul. He built worlds, sparked imaginations, and inspired millions to dream bigger, to stand taller, and to fight for what they believed in, no matter the odds. He was, and still is, revered as the last true cowboy of Hollywood, a man whose principles seemed as unyielding as the cinematic heroes he brought to life. But as the applause eventually fades and the golden statuettes gather dust on a shelf, the echoes of immense success can often mask a quieter, more insidious struggle. For Kevin Costner, reaching his 7th decade has brought with it not just the accumulated wisdom and gravitas of age, but a profound, almost seismic wave of personal and professional challenges that threaten to redefine his legacy in ways none of us could have fully foreseen. The public perception, carefully curated over decades, painted a picture of an almost untouchable idol. The successful movie star, the devoted family man, the entrepreneur with sprawling ranches and ambitious visions. Yet, peel back that polished veneer, and you begin to uncover a different, far more complex narrative. A story woven with unexpected threads of sacrifice, deeply felt loss, public scrutiny that cuts to the bone, and a relentless, often agonizing fight to maintain not just relevance in a fickle industry, but his very sense of self, his core values against an onslaught of personal turmoil. This isn't merely a recounting of his filmography or a superficial glance at celebrity headlines. This is an exhaustive, intricate journey into the untold chapters of Kevin Costner's life, a deep dive beyond the curated images and the triumphant box office numbers. We are here to explore the strength behind the legend, yes, but more importantly, the profound, often hidden pain behind the perfection. We will meticulously navigate the winding roads from the humble, dusty streets of Lynwood, California, where a young Costner first dared to dream, through the dizzying pinnacles of Hollywood, where those dreams soared higher than anyone could have imagined, and into the valleys of deeply personal trials that have tested the very fabric of his being. We will confront the true cost of legacy, the sacrifices made, the battles fought off-screen, and the unique brand of heartbreak that can only be understood by a man who has given so much of himself to the world, only to face his greatest tests when the cameras are off and the adoring crowds have gone home. Prepare to discover why, even now, as shadows lengthen and personal storms rage, the world still calls him the last true cowboy of Hollywood, and why the profound tragedy unfolding in his life at 70 is truly, utterly heartbreaking. Before the grand stages of Hollywood, before the thunderous applause and the legendary roles that would define a generation, Kevin Costner's story began on far dustier roads, in the quiet, working-class heartland of Lynwood, California. This wasn't a place that promised silver screens or golden statuettes. It was a humble, unassuming backdrop against which the raw, unrefined foundations of a future icon were meticulously laid. Born in 1955, Kevin Michael Costner entered a world far removed from the glitz and glamour that would later become his everyday reality. His father, William Costner, worked as an electrician for Southern California Edison, a steady, blue-collar profession that often meant the family was uprooted and moved to different parts of California as new projects or positions arose. His mother, Sharon Ray Tedrick, was a welfare worker, grounding young Kevin in an understanding of everyday struggles and the quiet dignity of ordinary people. These frequent moves during his childhood, from Lynwood to Compton, then to Ventura, and eventually to Orange County, were more than just changes of address. They were formative experiences, subtly shaping a young boy who constantly found himself the new kid in school. This transient lifestyle could have fostered a sense of detachment, but for Costner, it seemed to cultivate a unique ability to observe, adapt, and build resilience. He learned to be comfortable in new surroundings, to quickly assess social landscapes, and perhaps to cultivate an inner world that was always his own, regardless of the external shifts. It's a trait that, in retrospect, would serve him well in the chameleon-like demands of an acting career and in the often unstable terrain of Hollywood itself. Academically, Costner wasn't an immediate standout, nor was he the quintessential drama club kid. His early aspirations were rooted in practicality, echoing the values instilled by his working-class parents. He attended Villa Park High School, where he was more involved in athletics, particularly baseball and basketball, showcasing an early penchant for teamwork, discipline, and competitive spirit. These were the arenas where he first learned the sting of defeat and the thrill of hard-won victories, lessons that would resonate deeply as he navigated the cutthroat world of show business. Following high school, the path seemed clear, a sensible, stable career. He enrolled at California State University, Fullerton, where he pursued a Bachelor of Arts degree in marketing and finance. This choice wasn't driven by a burning artistic passion, but by a pragmatic desire for a secure future, a testament to the grounded, responsible young man he was. He envisioned a career in business, perhaps climbing the corporate ladder, making a steady income, and building a conventional life. But even as he delved into the intricacies of supply chains and balance sheets, an undeniable, almost subconscious pull towards something more expressive began to stir within him. It was a subtle flicker, easily dismissed at first, overshadowed by the practical demands of his chosen major. Yet it persisted. During his college years, a pivotal relationship blossomed with Cindy Silva. They met at Cal State Fullerton, and their connection was immediate and profound. Cindy wasn't just his girlfriend. She became a steadfast companion, a confidant, and crucially, an early believer in the nascent artistic leanings that Costner himself was still grappling with. Their relationship was a crucial anchor during a time of immense internal exploration and uncertainty for Kevin. The moment that would indelibly alter Costner's trajectory, however, came shortly after his graduation in 1978. Having married Cindy, he was on a flight back from their honeymoon in Mexico. As fate would have it, a legendary figure of the stage and screen, Richard Burton, was on the same plane. Seizing a moment of courage, Costner approached the esteemed actor. He confessed his internal struggle, the burning question of whether he should abandon the conventional path he'd studied for and pursue the unpredictable, often brutal world of acting. Burton, a man whose life had been a tempest of both artistic triumph and personal turmoil, listened intently. His advice was profound in its simplicity. If you want to be an actor, you must be prepared to give everything to it. You must be prepared to lose everything for it. And if you're not, then don't bother. But he also added, don't ever look back. Don't ever look back and say, I wish I had done that. Those words weren't just advice, they were a thunderclap. They validated the whispers of his own heart, echoing a truth he was almost afraid to acknowledge. Burton's gravitas, his lived experience, gave Costner the permission he needed to fully commit. The practical business degree suddenly felt less like a future and more like a safety net he was now ready to cut. With Cindy's unwavering support, Kevin made the monumental decision to leave his budding marketing career behind, a job he held briefly at a marketing firm, and throw himself wholeheartedly into the perilous pursuit of acting. This was not a decision made lightly or with any guarantee of success. In fact, it was met with skepticism from many, including family and friends who saw it as a reckless abandonment of a stable future for a pipe dream. The early years in Hollywood were, predictably, a grueling test of his resolve. He and Cindy lived frugally, often barely scraping by. Costner took on a myriad of odd jobs to make ends meet and finance acting classes. He worked on a fishing boat, drove trucks, and even served as a tour guide for Hollywood celebrity homes, a grim irony for a man who desperately wanted to be inside those homes, not just pointing them out from a bus window. Rejection became his constant companion. Audition after audition led to nothing but doors slammed shut. He was told he wasn't handsome enough, not charismatic enough, simply not it. The constant barrage of negativity could have easily broken a lesser spirit, but for Costner, it seemed to only strengthen his determination. Each no became fuel for the next attempt, solidifying a tenacious grit that would define his entire career. Cindy Silva's role during these lean years could not be overstated. She was not only his wife, but her fiercest advocate and emotional anchor. While Kevin pursued his dreams, she often took on additional work to ensure they had food on the table and a roof over their heads. Her belief in him never wavered, even when his own confidence might have been bruised and battered. This partnership, forged in the crucible of ambition and financial hardship, became a crucial bedrock for the man he was becoming. Their shared struggles reinforced a profound sense of loyalty and sacrifice, shaping Costner's understanding of commitment both on and off screen. These foundational years, spent navigating the dusty roads of Lynwood and the even dustier, more unforgiving roads of early Hollywood, were instrumental in forging the character of Kevin Costner. The practical sensibility of his upbringing, the resilience gained from constant relocation, the discipline learned through sports, the unwavering support of his wife, and the brutal lessons of rejection all coalesced to create a man of profound integrity and an unshakable work ethic. He learned to embody the everyday man because he was the everyday man, struggling and striving. This period instilled in him a grounded authenticity, a sense of honesty that would later become a hallmark of his most iconic performances. He wasn't just dreaming of stardom, he was building his character, piece by painstaking piece, preparing for a future that at the time remained an elusive, almost impossible dream. The future icon was being molded not by the spotlight, but by the shadows and struggles of his nascent journey, laying the groundwork for the enduring legend of Kevin Costner. After years of grinding, of small roles and near misses, a palpable shift occurred in Kevin Costner's trajectory as the 1980s drew to a close. The industry, and indeed the world, began to sit up and take notice, not just of a handsome face, but of an undeniable talent, a singular charisma that promised something truly special. This period marked an explosive ascent, a rapid-fire succession of roles that would not only define his early stardom, but also lay the groundwork for a legendary career that few could ever hope to replicate. He wasn't just getting parts, he was inhabiting characters that resonated deeply, characters that felt intrinsically American, imbued with a quiet strength and a captivating authenticity. The first major tremor of this impending earthquake arrived in 1987 with the taut political thriller No Way Out. Costner stepped into the shoes of Lieutenant Commander Tom Farrell, a character thrust into a dangerous web of espionage, murder, and high-stakes cover-ups within the Pentagon. It was a role that demanded an intricate balance of vulnerability and steely resolve. Farrell was a man caught between his duty and his clandestine affair with a woman connected to a powerful, corrupt Secretary of Defense. Costner's performance was electric. He exuded a natural intensity, a desperate charm that made his character's predicament all the more harrowing. Viewers watched, breathless, as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of power, often literally running for his life, all while trying to piece together a deadly conspiracy. His portrayal was both physically demanding and emotionally complex, showcasing a range that had only been hinted at before. He wasn't just a tough guy, he was a man under immense pressure, making impossible choices, yet never losing that spark of inherent decency. The film was a critical and commercial success, solidifying Costner's status as a leading man capable of carrying a serious, high-stakes narrative. It proved he could handle suspense, romance, and the moral ambiguities of a complex plot, all while maintaining a powerful, magnetic presence on screen. This was a critical step in establishing his dramatic chops, moving beyond the more straightforward good guy roles and demonstrating a nuanced depth that would become his hallmark. Hard on the heels of No Way Out, Costner returned to the screen in 1988 with Bull Durham, a film that would indelibly stamp his persona with an irresistible blend of wit, wisdom, and working-class charm. Here, he became Crash Davis, a seasoned, philosophical minor league baseball catcher whose best days were behind him, but whose knowledge of the game and life was vast. Crash was a character dripping with cynical humor, a man who understood the poetry of baseball as much as its grinding realities. Costner's performance was a masterclass in understated cool, bringing to life a character who was world-weary yet deeply principled, a mentor figure who harbored his own quiet dreams. His chemistry with Susan Sarandon, playing the baseball groupie Annie Savoy, was palpable, sparking with intellectual banter and simmering passion. He delivered lines with a knowing wink, a slight drawl that made every word sound like an undeniable truth, whether he was waxing poetic about the spirituality of baseball or laying down the rules of the game to a hot-headed rookie. Bull Durham was a cultural phenomenon, celebrated for its authentic portrayal of minor league baseball, its sharp dialogue, and its surprisingly profound meditations on love, ambition, and the pursuit of meaning. It solidified Costner's image as an authentic American hero, but one with a refreshing edge, a thoughtful, independent spirit who wasn't afraid to challenge conventions. This was the birth of the smart guy who wasn't afraid to get dirty, the principled man who stood his ground, a character archetype that began to define the burgeoning last true cowboy persona, even before he would ever literally don a Stetson. Then came Field of Dreams in 1989, a film that transcended mere entertainment to become a modern American myth and a cornerstone of Costner's legend. As Ray Kinsella, an Iowa corn farmer who hears a mysterious voice urging him to build a baseball field in his backyard, Costner delivered a performance of profound earnestness and quiet conviction. Ray was a dreamer, a man grappling with unspoken regrets and a yearning for connection, especially with his deceased father. Costner imbued Ray with an everyman quality, making his extraordinary journey feel utterly relatable. His vulnerability was on full display as he wrestled with doubt, chased an improbable vision, and ultimately confronted the ghosts of his past. The film, a magical realist fable about faith, family, and the enduring power of baseball, struck a universal chord. It tapped into a deep well of American sentimentality, exploring themes of forgiveness, second chances, and the pursuit of impossible dreams. Costner's portrayal anchored the film's powerful emotional core, allowing audiences to believe in the unbelievable, to cry with him, and to cheer for his journey of redemption. Iconic lines like, "If you build it, he will come," became part of the cultural lexicon, forever linking Costner to the heartwarming, tear-jerking narrative of this timeless classic. Field of Dreams elevated his American hero status to a more mystical, spiritual plane, establishing him as an actor capable of conveying profound depth and heartfelt emotion. A man of deep conviction and unwavering spirit, connecting him firmly to the wholesome, if complex, values of Americana. By 1990, Kevin Costner wasn't just a movie star, he was a phenomenon. His films were hits, his image was solid gold, and his artistic credibility was undeniable. It was precisely this formidable combination of commercial appeal and critical respect that allowed him to embark on a project that many in Hollywood deemed suicidal: Dances with Wolves. This was not just another role. This was a personal crusade, a passion project he had harbored for years based on Michael Blake's novel. The studios were notoriously skeptical. A 3-hour Western, largely spoken in a Native American language, directed by an actor making his directorial debut with an enormous budget for its time? It screamed vanity project and box office disaster. But Costner, with the independent spirit of the very characters he portrayed, refused to be deterred. He poured his own money into the production, risking his entire fortune and burgeoning career on his unyielding vision. The challenges were monumental. Filming took place over 5 months in the harsh, breathtaking landscapes of South Dakota, demanding grueling schedules and resilience from the entire cast and crew. Costner, as director, had to manage an unprecedented scale. Herds of wild buffalo, hundreds of extras, many of whom were non-professional Lakota speakers, intricate battle sequences, and the sheer logistical nightmare of telling a story that embraced cultural authenticity at every turn. He insisted on dialogue being spoken in Lakota, dedicating significant resources to language coaches and translators, a revolutionary decision for Hollywood at the time. As L.T. John Dunbar, a Civil War soldier who seeks the frontier and ultimately integrates with a Lakota tribe, Costner delivered a performance of quiet intensity and profound transformation. He embodied Dunbar's journey from a disillusioned soldier to a man who finds belonging and purpose among a people entirely alien to his previous world. His character's evolution from tentative observer to respected member of the tribe was portrayed with remarkable sensitivity and empathy. Costner's directorial hand was evident in every frame, crafting an epic that was both sweeping in scope and intimate in its human connections. He showed the beauty and dignity of the Lakota people, shattering decades of stereotypical portrayals in mainstream cinema. The industry held its breath, expecting the worst. What they got was a masterpiece. Dances with Wolves was an instant critical darling and a box office juggernaut, grossing over $424 million worldwide against a $22 million budget, making it a spectacular financial success that defied every expectation. The film captivated audiences with its breathtaking visuals, its stirring score, and its powerful message of understanding and cultural exchange. Then came the Academy Awards. Dances with Wolves swept the Oscars, winning 7 statuettes, including Best Picture and, astonishingly, Best Director for Costner. It was an unprecedented triumph for a first-time director, cementing his status not just as a global movie star, but as a visionary auteur. This moment redefined his career, transforming him into a singular force in Hollywood, a filmmaker with both the artistic integrity and the commercial clout to pursue projects on his own terms. More than just awards, Dances with Wolves profoundly redefined American cinema. It single-handedly revitalized the Western genre, which had been considered dead for decades, proving that audiences were hungry for nuanced, character-driven narratives set in the American frontier. Crucially, it ushered in a new era of historical dramas that approached Native American cultures with respect and authenticity, moving away from the caricatures and prejudices of the past. It demonstrated that an epic film could be both visually spectacular and deeply intellectual, engaging with complex themes of colonialism, identity, and environmentalism. This monumental achievement undoubtedly cemented Kevin Costner's last true cowboy persona. He had literally ridden onto the screen as a frontier figure, embodying the rugged individualism, the quiet strength, and the moral compass that defined the archetype. But beyond the literal portrayal, it was his independent spirit in making the film, his unyielding vision against studio reluctance, and his commitment to authenticity that truly embodied the cowboy ethos. He was the principled, self-reliant individual connected to the American landscape and its history, unafraid to forge his own path. In an increasingly corporate and manufactured Hollywood, Costner stood as a beacon of artistic integrity and personal conviction, a true maverick who brought an authentic, unvarnished masculinity to the screen that resonated deeply with audiences. He had not only built a field of dreams, he had built an empire, one film at a time, each one further solidifying his place as a legend. This period was Kevin Costner's golden touch, an era where he could seemingly do no wrong, establishing the foundation for a legacy that would echo for decades to come. The roar of the crowd, the glittering Oscar in hand, the undisputed king of Hollywood. After the monumental, world-changing success of Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner stood at an unprecedented zenith. He was not merely an actor, he was a visionary, a director, a storyteller whose singular vision had captivated millions and reshaped the landscape of American cinema. The industry, and indeed the world, seemed to be at his feet. His every move was watched, his every project anticipated with bated breath. And for a fleeting, intoxicating moment, it genuinely felt as though Costner possessed the legendary Midas touch. Everything he laid his hands upon would turn to cinematic gold. But history, particularly Hollywood history, has a cruel way of reminding us that even the most glorious peaks often lead to precarious slopes. This era, immediately following his Oscar triumph, was not just about riding the wave of success. It was about amplifying it, pushing the boundaries, and pursuing an ambition that, in hindsight, bordered on the audacious. Costner wasn't content to simply star in films, he sought to build worlds, to craft narratives on a scale rarely attempted, and to wield creative control with an almost unshakable conviction. It was this soaring ambition, fueled by unparalleled success, that would ultimately become a double-edged sword, carving out a path to both unprecedented creative freedom and, tragically, a period of profound public and professional reckoning. The stage was set for an epic, not just on screen, but in the very trajectory of his storied career, a period marked by massive financial and critical investments, intense media scrutiny, and a seismic shift in public perception. The roar of the crowd, the glittering Oscar in hand, the undisputed king of Hollywood. After the monumental, world-changing success of Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner stood at an unprecedented zenith. He was not merely an actor, he was a visionary, a director, a storyteller whose singular vision had captivated millions and reshaped the landscape of American cinema. The industry, and indeed the world, seemed to be at his feet. His every move was watched, his every project anticipated with bated breath. And for a fleeting, intoxicating moment, it genuinely felt as though Costner possessed the legendary Midas touch. Everything he laid his hands upon would turn to cinematic gold. But history, particularly Hollywood history, has a cruel way of reminding us that even the most glorious peaks often lead to precarious slopes. This era immediately following his Oscar triumph was not just about riding the wave of success. It was about amplifying it, pushing the boundaries, and pursuing an ambition that, in hindsight, bordered on the audacious. Costner wasn't content to simply star in films. He sought to build worlds, to craft narratives on a scale rarely attempted, and to wield creative control with an almost unshakable conviction. It was this soaring ambition, fueled by unparalleled success, that would ultimately become a double-edged sword, carving out a path to both unprecedented creative freedom and, tragically, a period of profound public and professional reckoning. The stage was set for an epic, not just on screen, but in the very trajectory of his storied career, a period marked by massive financial and critical investments, intense media scrutiny, and a seismic shift in public perception. The first and perhaps most infamous manifestation of this expanded ambition arrived in 1995 with Waterworld. Envisioned as a sprawling, post-apocalyptic epic set in a future where the polar ice caps had melted and the Earth was entirely submerged, it was a concept of breathtaking scope and undeniable originality. Costner was deeply invested, not just as the leading man, but as a producer, pouring his creative energy and significant personal capital into bringing this unique vision to life. The premise itself, a drifter on a trimaran navigating a vast watery wasteland, spoke to a certain mythic heroism that resonated deeply with Costner's established persona. It promised grand spectacle, environmental themes, and a hero worthy of his previous roles. However, the very ambition that made Waterworld so intriguing on paper became its greatest antagonist during production. Filming a majority of a mega-budget blockbuster on water in the open ocean off the coast of Hawaii proved to be an engineering, logistical, and financial nightmare of almost unprecedented proportions. Imagine trying to anchor massive, complex sets, including an entire floating city, the atoll, in constantly shifting currents, battling unpredictable weather patterns that could turn a calm day into a storm-tossed chaos in minutes. Typhoons ravaged the Hawaiian shores, obliterating painstakingly constructed sets and forcing costly, time-consuming rebuilds. Saltwater corrosion relentlessly attacked vital equipment, from cameras to communication systems, adding layers of technical difficulty and expense. The sheer difficulty of moving people, props, and equipment from land to floating sets, often miles offshore, added hours to every single day's shoot. Safety became a constant, pervasive concern. Crew members endured injuries, divers experienced decompression sickness, and the very act of filming became a perilous endeavor. The massive, custom-built trimaran, a character in itself, was incredibly difficult to manage in real conditions. The budget, initially estimated at a robust $100 million, began to spiral out of control with alarming speed. Every setback, every weather delay, every rebuild, every unexpected technical glitch added millions to the escalating cost. Adding fuel to this already volatile fire was the well-documented creative clash between Costner and original director Kevin Reynolds, a frequent collaborator since Fandango. Reynolds, overwhelmed by the logistical challenges and reportedly clashing with Costner over the film's direction and pacing, eventually left the project, or was removed, depending on whose accounts you believe. Costner, with his producer's hat firmly on, essentially stepped into the director's chair himself for significant portions of the shoot and post-production. While this demonstrated his absolute commitment to his vision, it also cemented a public perception of him as a demanding, perhaps even autocratic, perfectionist who refused to relinquish control. This was a narrative that would haunt him for years. The media, always hungry for a grand fall, seized upon Waterworld's mounting troubles with voracious glee. Reports of the ballooning budget, which ultimately swelled to an astonishing, for the time, $175 million, and some estimates put it much higher, approaching $200 million if marketing was included, became front-page news. It was sensationally dubbed the most expensive film ever made, a label that carried with it an implicit condemnation of excess and hubris. Journalists and tabloids alike delighted in painting a picture of Costner's folly, comparing it to infamous Hollywood disasters like Heaven's Gate. The narrative shifted from visionary director to megalomaniac star, from Midas touch to reckless spendthrift. The anticipation for Waterworld transformed from excitement into a morbid curiosity, with many actively hoping for its spectacular failure. The shift in public perception was palpable and brutal. The relatable, grounded hero of Field of Dreams and Dances with Wolves was being recast as an out-of-touch emperor, blinded by his own ambition. When Waterworld finally premiered, it faced an uphill battle. Critically, it received mixed to negative reviews, often overshadowed by the well-publicized production woes. Many critics seemed to review the making of the film more than the film itself. At the box office, while it ultimately grossed over $264 million worldwide, it was a colossal disappointment in the domestic market, struggling to make back its staggering budget. For a film that had been positioned as a surefire blockbuster designed to cement Costner's imperial reign, it was a definitive commercial underperformance. The fall from grace narrative, carefully constructed by the media, was now firmly entrenched in the public consciousness. His Midas touch, it seemed, had suddenly turned to lead. Yet, astonishingly, Costner's appetite for grand-scale, self-directed epics remained undimmed. Just 2 years later, in 1997, he released The Postman, another post-apocalyptic narrative, this time set in a fractured America struggling to rebuild itself after a devastating war. Costner not only starred, but also directed and produced this sprawling 3-hour saga, which championed themes of hope, unity, and the enduring power of American ideals. It was, in many ways, an even more personal and overtly philosophical film than Waterworld, attempting to craft a modern myth about the restoration of civilization. But the ghost of Waterworld loomed large. The immediate public reaction was one of skepticism, even derision. "He's doing it again?" was the collective whisper. The memory of the budget overruns and the media circus of his previous directorial effort was still fresh. Despite being less logistically nightmarish than Waterworld, The Postman was still a significant production with a substantial budget. The critical reception for The Postman was, if anything, even more scathing than Waterworld. It was widely panned as self-indulgent, preachy, bloated, and lacking the compelling narrative drive of his earlier successes. Critics openly questioned Costner's judgment, interpreting his second foray into a bleak future as a sign of unbridled hubris rather than artistic conviction. The film became a lightning rod for ridicule, and its box office performance was nothing short of disastrous, failing spectacularly to recoup its costs and becoming an undeniable commercial flop. The ultimate indignity arrived with the Golden Raspberry Awards, where The Postman swept the Razzies, winning Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Actor, a stark, humiliating contrast to the Oscars he had collected just a few years prior. This back-to-back sequence of highly ambitious, highly publicized, and ultimately financially and critically disappointing directorial efforts took a profound personal and professional toll on Kevin Costner. Imagine the immense pressure of carrying such massive productions on your shoulders, the financial risks, the creative investment, only to be met with widespread public ridicule and professional scorn. The man who had been hailed as a genius was now being painted as a cautionary tale of unchecked ego. This period undoubtedly fostered self-doubt, taxed his mental fortitude, and challenged his unwavering belief in his own artistic vision. Professionally, the impact was immediate and long-lasting. His directorial credibility, so hard-won with Dances with Wolves, was severely undermined. He was no longer the first choice for every major Hollywood project. The perception of him as difficult or risky to work with became prevalent. The types of roles he was offered shifted, leading him to take on smaller parts, supporting roles, and ensemble pieces, a strategic retreat to rebuild his acting career brick by painful brick. While his personal wealth was significant, these massive financial disappointments still represented enormous hits, both monetarily and in terms of the potential lost earnings from his diminishing star power. The relationships with studios, built on trust and success, were strained by the financial bloodbath of these ventures. Yet, in this period of tumultuous mid-career, Kevin Costner displayed a remarkable, almost stubborn resilience. He didn't disappear. He didn't cower. Instead, he navigated these turbulent waters with a quiet determination, implicitly learning harsh but invaluable lessons. The danger of unchecked ambition became clear, as did the crucial balance between visionary leadership and collaborative decision-making. He had to reevaluate the scale of his projects, understanding the market's appetite, and perhaps shift his focus from grand spectacle back to compelling storytelling. This era, more than any other, dissects the true meaning of artistic risk for a public figure. Dances with Wolves was a risk that paid off beyond anyone's wildest dreams, lauded as brave and groundbreaking. Waterworld and The Postman were risks that spectacularly backfired, perceived as hubris and misjudgment. The line between visionary and fool is often drawn by the outcome of a gamble, not necessarily the intent behind it. Costner's willingness to pursue unconventional, grand-scale ideas, even in the face of immense scrutiny and potential failure, speaks to an inherent courage, a deep-seated belief in his own narrative voice. It's a testament to his character that despite the public crucifixion, the financial losses, and the professional setbacks, he chose to keep fighting, to keep acting, and eventually to keep directing, albeit with a more measured hand. This period was not the end of Kevin Costner. It was merely the furnace in which the next, more grounded and perhaps more authentic version of his enduring legend would be forged. He had to shed the weight of impossible expectations and rebuild his legacy, one role, one film at a time, proving that even a king can learn to walk among his people again. Beyond the roaring applause and the shimmering spectacle of the silver screen, there exists a man whose life has been as intricately woven with profound personal triumphs and devastating heartbreaks as any epic drama he ever brought to life. For Kevin Costner, the journey from the dusty roads of Lynwood to the glittering heights of Hollywood was never just about career accolades. It was and remains a deeply personal saga, a testament to the emotional toll exacted by a life lived under an unyielding spotlight. The true measure of his story, and perhaps the very essence of his evolving tragedy, lies not solely in the cinematic empires he built, but in the private battles fought within the confines of his own heart and home, in the enduring legacy of love, loss, and the relentless complexities of raising a family as a public figure. His first marriage to Cindy Silva stands as a foundational chapter in this deeply personal narrative. Their love story began far from the dazzling lights of Hollywood back in 1975, when both were students at California State University, Fullerton. Cindy was, by all accounts, his college sweetheart, a woman who saw the ambition and the dreamer in Kevin long before the rest of the world caught on. She worked tirelessly, even taking on multiple jobs as a flight attendant and a marketing representative to support Kevin during his formative, struggling years as an actor. She was his anchor, his confidant, a constant source of encouragement in a world that offered more rejection than applause. Their union in 1978 was a quiet affair, a promise exchanged between two young souls blissfully unaware of the seismic shifts awaiting them. They built a modest life together, a sanctuary of normalcy that would soon be tested by the escalating demands of his burgeoning fame. As Kevin's star began its meteoric ascent, particularly with breakthrough roles in films like The Untouchables and Bull Durham, Cindy stood by his side, attempting to navigate the dizzying new reality of red carpets, paparazzi, and the relentless public fascination with her husband. Their family grew with the arrival of 3 children: Annie in 1984, Lily in 1986, and Joe in 1988. These were years of immense professional triumph for Costner, but simultaneously years of unprecedented personal pressure. The man who portrayed the ultimate protector in The Bodyguard found himself increasingly unable to shield his own family from the unforgiving glare. The intense adoration of his female fans, fueled by his leading man status, became a palpable force, creating an invisible yet undeniable strain on their marital bond. Whispers of infidelity, often unsubstantiated but nonetheless damaging, began to circulate, eroding the bedrock of trust and privacy that had once defined their relationship. The rigorous filming schedules, the extended periods away from home, the constant scrutiny of tabloids dissecting every glance and every rumored interaction, these were not merely occupational hazards, but corrosive elements that chipped away at the foundation of what they had built. Cindy, a woman who cherished privacy and normalcy, found herself plunged into a world of relentless public judgment and speculation, a world for which she had never signed up. The fairy tale facade began to crack, revealing the immense personal cost of such stratospheric success. The eventual dissolution of their marriage in 1994 sent shockwaves through Hollywood and deeply affected Costner himself. It wasn't just a divorce, it was the public dismantling of a relationship that had spanned 16 years, predating and underpinning all of his major cinematic achievements. The media feasted on the details, painting a narrative of a star whose personal life couldn't withstand the pressures of his professional zenith. The financial settlement, reportedly around $80 million, was one of the largest in Hollywood history at the time, a stark, tangible representation of the immense personal and financial price of their separation. Beyond the monetary aspect, the emotional impact was profound and lasting. For Kevin, it was a deeply felt personal failure, the unraveling of his most significant relationship, a wound that lingered long after the headlines faded. For Cindy and their children, it meant adjusting to a new reality, one irrevocably altered by the public nature of their father's fame and their parents' very public separation. This chapter marked a significant turning point, underscoring the tragic irony that the man who brought such enduring love stories to the screen could not preserve his own, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath the steely gaze of the cinematic cowboy. It was a stark reminder that even the most formidable figures are not immune to the universal heartache of a broken home. Only theirs is played out on the world stage, amplified by every camera flash and every whispered rumor. In the aftermath of his divorce from Cindy, Kevin navigated a period of intense public scrutiny regarding his relationships, punctuated by brief, high-profile dalliances. This era saw him grapple with the complexities of single fatherhood while remaining one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. His relationship with Bridget Rooney, a Pittsburgh heiress, resulted in the birth of his son Liam in 1996, adding another layer of complexity to his already multifaceted family life. It was a time of searching, of trying to piece together a new sense of normalcy and belonging amidst the continued demands of his career and the watchful eye of the press. The public fascination with his love life remained undiminished, each new connection serving as fodder for endless speculation, constantly reminding him that his private world was perpetually under examination. In the aftermath of his divorce from Cindy, Kevin navigated a period of intense public scrutiny regarding his relationships, punctuated by brief, high-profile dalliances. This era saw him grapple with the complexities of single fatherhood while remaining one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. His relationship with Bridget Rooney, a Pittsburgh heiress, resulted in the birth of his son Liam in 1996, adding another layer of complexity to his already multifaceted family life. It was a time of searching, of trying to piece together a new sense of normalcy and belonging amidst the continued demands of his career and the watchful eye of the press. The public fascination with his love life remained undiminished, each new connection serving as fodder for endless speculation, constantly reminding him that his private world was perpetually under examination. The aftermath of his divorce from Cindy, Kevin navigated a period of intense public scrutiny regarding his relationships, punctuated by brief, high-profile dalliances. This era saw him grapple with the complexities of single fatherhood while remaining one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. His relationship with Bridget Rooney, a Pittsburgh heiress, resulted in the birth of his son Liam in 1996, adding another layer of complexity to his already multifaceted family life. It was a time of searching, of trying to piece together a new sense of normalcy and belonging amidst the continued demands of his career and the watchful eye of the press. The public fascination with his love life remained undiminished, each new connection serving as fodder for endless speculation, constantly reminding him that his private world was perpetually under examination. Then a new chapter began to unfold with Christine Baumgartner. They first met years prior on a golf course, but it wasn't until 1999 that their paths truly intertwined. Christine, a model and handbag designer significantly younger than Costner, represented a fresh start, a different kind of love. Yet, even this relationship was initially fraught with a deeply personal dilemma that spoke volumes about Costner's evolving priorities and past experiences. Christine desired children, a prospect Costner, already a father of 4 from 2 previous relationships, initially hesitated to embrace. He had known the pain of a dissolved marriage and the challenges of raising a family in the spotlight, and the idea of starting anew later in life was a daunting one. Christine, however, was resolute. She gave him an ultimatum, stating that she would wait for him but wouldn't wait for him to decide to have children. This pivotal moment forced Kevin to confront his fears and to make a profound choice. His love for Christine was such that he ultimately agreed, a testament to the depth of his feelings and his willingness to embark on a new journey of fatherhood. They married in 2004, a beautiful ceremony held at his sprawling 160-acre ranch in Aspen, Colorado, a setting that symbolized a desire for privacy and roots. Over the next decade, their family grew with the births of Caden in 2007, Hayes in 2009, and Grace in 2010. For a time, it seemed Costner had found his ultimate peace, a profound sense of domestic stability that had eluded him during the tumultuous peak of his earlier career. He spoke frequently about the joys of fatherhood, of cherishing these younger years, trying to be a more present and engaged parent than perhaps he had been able to be with his older children during his initial ascent to superstardom. He built a beautiful life with Christine, seemingly an idyllic picture of a Hollywood legend finally finding enduring love and a large, happy family. He was often seen with his children, coaching their baseball teams, taking them surfing, cultivating an image of a devoted family man, determined to protect his younger brood from the harsher realities of his fame. However, the unforgiving glare of Hollywood, once a distant threat, proved capable of piercing even the most carefully constructed sanctuaries. The challenges of balancing a demanding career, which saw him continue to take on ambitious projects like Yellowstone, with the responsibilities of a large blended family, eventually began to show cracks in the meticulously crafted facade. Despite their efforts to maintain privacy, the public's insatiable appetite for celebrity lives meant that their every move, every vacation, every public appearance was scrutinized. The emotional toll of constantly protecting his family from intrusive media, of living under an endless microscope, was undoubtedly immense, an invisible burden that weighed heavily on their relationship. Then, in May 2023, the world was stunned by the announcement of Christine Baumgartner filing for divorce after 18 years of marriage. For many, it felt like a cruel twist of fate, a brutal repetition of history for a man who seemed to have finally found his footing in love. But this time, the circumstances were different, perhaps even more heartbreaking. This was not a young man grappling with newfound fame, but a septuagenarian legend, facing the public collapse of his marriage in his twilight years, an age when one yearns for peace, stability, and the quiet comfort of enduring companionship. The subsequent divorce proceedings became a highly publicized, acrimonious spectacle, unfolding like a real-life drama more intense than any film. Details emerged about disagreements over financial support, the children's lifestyle, and the future of their shared Santa Barbara home. Christine's demands for child support and spousal maintenance were widely reported, drawing stark contrast to Costner's own financial arguments. The media frenzy was relentless, dissecting every legal filing, every court appearance, every purported reason for the split. For Kevin Costner, this second, deeply public divorce in his 70s represented not just a financial drain, but an immeasurable emotional one. The visible weariness in his eyes during court appearances spoke volumes of the profound heartbreak and stress he was enduring. It was a stark, painful reminder that even immense wealth and global fame offer no shield from the raw, universal pain of a shattered family. The tragedy here is multi-layered. The devastation of a significant love lost, the public humiliation of having his most intimate battles aired for the world to consume, and the added burden of doing so at an age where resilience often wanes. It's the bitter irony of a man who built a career on portraying strength and steadfastness, facing such profound personal upheaval in his own life. A narrative that deeply resonates with the concept of personal sacrifice and heartbreak, irrevocably contributing to the ongoing narrative of his tragedy as a Hollywood icon. Each broken vow, each public dispute, each tear shed behind closed doors adds another layer to the complex tapestry of a life lived and loved beyond the silver screen, a life marked by the very real, often agonizing cost of legacy. Yet, just as the dust seemed to settle and the sun began to set on the expansive, sometimes unforgiving landscape of his career, a new dawn broke, casting long, familiar shadows across his path. Kevin Costner, always the resilient figure, the man who found solace and strength in the wide-open spaces of the American West, was about to ride back into the mainstream like a thunderclap, a resurgence that would redefine his later years and, paradoxically, bring with it a fresh wave of deeply personal and professional turbulence. This chapter in his life, unfolding as he entered his 70s, is a testament to the enduring power of his star, but also to the relentless, often cruel, demands of ambition, fame, and a life lived under the unblinking eye of the public. His grand return came in the form of Yellowstone, a television series that didn't just become a hit. It became a cultural phenomenon, an undeniable, sprawling epic that captivated millions and, for a time, solidified Costner's place not just as an actor, but as the quintessential embodiment of the modern American cowboy. The role of John Dutton, the ruthless, principled, and deeply conflicted patriarch of the largest contiguous ranch in the United States, was, in many ways, tailor-made for him. Costner, with his weathered charm, his undeniable gravitas, and that simmering intensity beneath a calm exterior, brought Dutton to life with an authenticity that resonated profoundly. He wasn't just playing a character, he was channeling decades of embodying rugged individualism, stoic determination, and an unwavering commitment to land and legacy. Viewers didn't just believe Costner as Dutton, they saw Costner as Dutton, a man forged from the same mythic American spirit that had defined so many of his iconic roles. This wasn't merely a casting choice, it felt like destiny. Before Yellowstone, Costner had continued working, certainly, but not with the kind of broad, undeniable cultural impact he'd enjoyed in his heyday. He directed, he acted in character roles, but the sheer, overwhelming mainstream success had become more elusive. Yellowstone changed all of that, overnight. Suddenly, a new generation discovered the magnetic pull of Kevin Costner. His face, once again, was everywhere. The series, spearheaded by the visionary writer and director Taylor Sheridan, tapped into a deep vein of American sentiment, exploring themes of family, loyalty, tradition, power, and the unrelenting struggle against forces that threatened to dismantle an inherited way of life. It was a neo-Western, but with a raw contemporary edge, blending corporate intrigue, political machinations, and brutal violence with breathtaking cinematography of the Montana landscape. Costner, as the unyielding Dutton, became the anchor of this intricate universe, earning critical acclaim, awards, including a Golden Globe, and, most importantly, a massive, dedicated new audience that devoured every episode. The show wasn't just entertainment, it was a rallying cry for a segment of America, and Costner, with his commanding presence, became its reluctant king. His return to such a prominent, high-profile project commanding an astronomical salary per episode was a definitive, powerful statement. Kevin Costner was back, and he was bigger than ever. The creative process behind Yellowstone was intrinsically linked to Costner's strengths. Taylor Sheridan's writing, deeply rooted in the Western genre and a profound understanding of American culture and its often overlooked heartland, provided a canvas perfectly suited for Costner's particular brand of cinematic masculinity. Sheridan, himself a cowboy and a storyteller of immense talent, understood the allure of the stoic, land-bound figure, a man whose word was his bond, and whose actions, however morally ambiguous, sprang from a fierce love of his family and his ancestral soil. This symbiosis between writer and star created magic, turning Yellowstone into more than just a television show. It became a phenomenon that spawned multiple spin-offs, influenced fashion trends, and brought the rugged beauty of the West back to the forefront of popular culture. The Yellowstone effect was undeniable, proving that there was a hungry audience for stories that celebrated a certain kind of American grit and resilience, and Kevin Costner, embodying those very qualities, stood at its glorious epicenter. However, the very success that propelled Costner back to the zenith of Hollywood would also become the unexpected battleground for new conflicts, a bitter, public, and ultimately heartbreaking chapter in his career. As Yellowstone soared, so too did Costner's long-gestating passion project, a multi-part Western epic titled Horizon. This wasn't just another film for him, it was a dream, a deeply personal and ambitious directorial endeavor he had poured his heart, soul, and significant financial resources into, risking his own fortune to bring it to fruition. Horizon was, in many ways, his Dances with Wolves of this later era, a testament to his unwavering commitment to the Western genre and his artistic vision. The friction began, predictably, with scheduling. Yellowstone demanded an ever-increasing chunk of his time, with the network and Sheridan keen to maximize their golden goose. Costner, however, was equally committed to Horizon, a project he viewed as his legacy, a cinematic statement he felt compelled to make. The negotiations grew tense, then acrimonious. Reports of disagreements over filming days, creative control, and financial demands began to leak, painting a picture of a star at odds with the very show that had revitalized his career. The public narrative, fueled by anonymous sources and subsequent comments from various parties, often cast Costner as difficult, demanding, or even abandoning the show that had given him so much. But for Costner, the situation was far more nuanced and deeply personal. He had committed to Yellowstone for a certain period, and when the show's demands shifted, conflicting directly with his ability to make Horizon, he felt compelled to prioritize his lifelong artistic ambition. He had tried to make it work, to find a compromise that would allow him to fulfill both commitments, but ultimately, the chasm between what was being asked of him for Yellowstone and what he needed for Horizon became too wide. His departure from the series was abrupt, leaving John Dutton's storyline unresolved and sparking a cascade of speculation, frustration from fans, and a palpable sense of bitterness between the actor and the show's creators. To walk away from such an enormously successful, high-paying role, knowing the public scrutiny it would invite, speaks volumes about the depth of his commitment to Horizon. It was a painful divorce from a role he had loved and a show he had helped elevate, a professional tragedy unfolding in real time. And then, as if the professional turmoil weren't enough, life delivered another devastating blow, the highly publicized and often brutal unraveling of his second marriage to Christine Baumgartner. After 18 years together and 3 children, Christine filed for divorce in May 2023, citing irreconcilable differences. The timing was cruel, coinciding directly with the peak of the Yellowstone conflicts and the intense, demanding production schedule of Horizon. Suddenly, Costner found himself battling on multiple fronts, professional and deeply personal, under the harsh glare of the public spotlight. The divorce proceedings quickly escalated into a bitter legal struggle, turning what should have been a private sorrow into a sensational public spectacle. The media devoured every detail: disputes over child support payments, the division of their extensive assets, and challenges to the prenuptial agreement. Christine's demands, particularly regarding child support and her living arrangements in their sprawling Santa Barbara estate, were widely reported, forcing Costner to publicly disclose intimate details of his finances, including his significant personal investment in Horizon. He argued in court that the financial strain of exorbitant support payments would severely impact his ability to fund his passion project, revealing the profound interconnectedness of his professional ambitions and personal stability. The image of a man entering his 70s, having to lay bare his financial vulnerabilities in court, fighting over every dollar while simultaneously pouring millions into a dream project, was truly heartbreaking. The emotional toll of this public uncoupling, the disruption to his family life, and the relentless media scrutiny cannot be overstated. Here was a man who had built an image around integrity, family, and a certain stoic resilience, now facing the very public dissolution of his most intimate partnership, coupled with the professional fallout of leaving a beloved show. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a deeply personal crisis playing out on a global stage, adding immense emotional and financial strain to a period already fraught with creative ambition and professional conflict. The pain of losing a cherished role, the uncertainty surrounding his grand cinematic vision, and the profound heartbreak of seeing his marriage crumble were converging, creating a vortex of stress that would test the mettle of any individual, let alone one navigating the complexities of his seventh decade. Thus, at 70, Kevin Costner's life is a poignant tableau of resurgence and struggle, success intertwined with profound personal and professional setbacks. The very triumph of Yellowstone, his powerful return to mainstream relevance, became the catalyst for a bitter public exit, a stark reminder that even the greatest comebacks can carry a heavy price. Simultaneously, the intensely personal tragedy of his divorce, with its accompanying financial and emotional battles, underscored the relentless burdens that fame and ambition can impose. Even as he pours his heart and soul into Horizon, a project that symbolizes his enduring artistic spirit, he does so amidst the ruins of a broken marriage and the fallout of a public professional feud. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a deeply personal crisis playing out on a global stage, adding immense emotional and financial strain to a period already fraught with creative ambition and professional conflict. The pain of losing a cherished role, the uncertainty surrounding his grand cinematic vision, and the profound heartbreak of seeing his marriage crumble were converging, creating a vortex of stress that would test the mettle of any individual, let alone one navigating the complexities of his seventh decade. Thus, at 70, Kevin Costner's life is a poignant tableau of resurgence and struggle, success intertwined with profound personal and professional setbacks. The very triumph of Yellowstone, his powerful return to mainstream relevance, became the catalyst for a bitter public exit, a stark reminder that even the greatest comebacks can carry a heavy price. Simultaneously, the intensely personal tragedy of his divorce, with its accompanying financial and emotional battles, underscored the relentless burdens that fame and ambition can impose. Even as he pours his heart and soul into Horizon, a project that symbolizes his enduring artistic spirit, he does so amidst the ruins of a broken marriage and the fallout of a public professional feud. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a deeply personal crisis playing out on a global stage, adding immense emotional and financial strain to a period already fraught with creative ambition and professional conflict. The pain of losing a cherished role, the uncertainty surrounding his grand cinematic vision, and the profound heartbreak of seeing his marriage crumble were converging, creating a vortex of stress that would test the mettle of any individual, let alone one navigating the complexities of his seventh decade. The overarching theme of his tragedy at 70, therefore, isn't about failure. It's about the relentless, often cruel challenges that continue to emerge, even in moments of triumph. It's the paradox of a man who, having scaled the heights again, finds himself navigating new, equally treacherous terrain. The last true cowboy of Hollywood may have found his way back to the top of the cultural mountain, but he is far from being able to rest. Instead, he continues to fight, battling not just external forces, but the deeply personal ramifications of a life lived intensely, ambitiously, and unblinkingly in the public eye. His saga, far from over, is a testament to resilience, yes, but also a heartbreaking illustration of the enduring struggles that add layers of complexity to even the most legendary of lives. We've journeyed through the sprawling epic that is Kevin Costner's life, a narrative as vast and unpredictable as the American landscapes he so often brings to the screen. From the dusty baseball diamonds of his youth in Lynwood, through the sun-drenched cornfields of Field of Dreams, to the sweeping vistas of Dances with Wolves, we've watched a legend forge his path, not with the calculated steps of a Hollywood machine, but with the untamed spirit of an authentic trailblazer. Yet, as we stand here, observing Kevin Costner at 70, it becomes profoundly clear that even for a man of such monumental achievements, the road has been paved with heartbreaks as deep and complex as his triumphs. We've seen the professional setbacks, the public crucibles where his passion projects like the ambitious spectacle of Waterworld or the post-apocalyptic vision of The Postman were derided, not just as financial disappointments, but as perceived artistic failures. These weren't mere bumps in the road, they were monumental battles against the relentless currents of public opinion and studio economics, moments where his unwavering belief in his vision often came at an exorbitant personal and financial cost. For a man who poured his soul into every frame, these moments of misunderstanding and harsh judgment must have stung with an intensity few can truly grasp. He didn't just make movies, he lived them, invested his own capital, and frequently risked everything to tell the stories he believed in. And when the world pushed back, it wasn't just a box office number taking a hit. It was a piece of his artistic core facing rejection. This willingness to gamble on his convictions, even when the odds seemed stacked against him, defines a tenacity rarely seen in an industry driven by committee decisions and guaranteed returns. But beyond the professional arena, the tragedies have struck even closer to home, piercing the very fabric of his personal life. The dissolution of his long marriage to Cindy Silva, a partner from his earliest struggling days, marked a profound turning point. A private grief played out under the unblinking eye of the media. And more recently, the highly public, often acrimonious split from Christine Baumgartner has cast a shadow of emotional turmoil and financial strain over his entering his 7th decade. These aren't just legal proceedings. They represent the profound unraveling of family, the reevaluation of shared futures, and the painful process of rebuilding one's life in plain sight. For a man who embodies the ideals of family and commitment in so many of his roles, these personal upheavals must weigh heavy, challenging the very foundation of his private world. Add to this the subtle yet undeniable challenges of aging in the relentless glare of the public eye, the scrutiny of every wrinkle, every gray hair, the constant expectation to maintain the vigorous persona of his youth. It's a quiet tragedy, the erosion of privacy and the struggle to simply be in an industry obsessed with youth and novelty. Yet, through every professional ambush and personal heartbreak, what shines through incandescently is Kevin Costner's unwavering resilience and his unyielding commitment to artistic integrity. He doesn't merely endure, he adapts, he reinvents, and he rises, often stronger and more defined than before. When Hollywood seemed to have moved on, he resurfaced with a vengeance, not in a blockbuster aimed at recapturing past glory, but in a gritty, character-driven drama like Yellowstone, which reminded the world of his unparalleled command of the screen. This wasn't a comeback orchestrated by publicists. It was a reclamation of his essence, a powerful statement that his storytelling prowess had only deepened with age and experience. His decision to pour his own resources again into the ambitious 4-part Horizon saga despite previous financial burns is not just a testament to his stubborn vision, but a profound declaration of his artistic purpose. He could easily retreat, enjoy his immense wealth, and rest on his laurels. Instead, he chooses to battle, to create, to push boundaries, knowing full well the risks involved. This is the mark of a true artist, one whose creative impulse is an intrinsic part of his being, a force that cannot be contained or compromised. This indomitable spirit, this refusal to yield to the superficiality or transient trends of the industry, is precisely why Kevin Costner remains, unequivocally, Hollywood's last true cowboy. It's a title not simply bestowed because of his iconic Western roles, but because of how he lives his life and navigates his career. A cowboy is independent, rugged, unafraid of solitude, and deeply connected to the land and his principles. He doesn't follow the herd, he leads it, or he rides alone. Costner embodies this spirit through his uncompromising authenticity, his fierce protectiveness of his creative vision, and his refusal to be anything other than himself, even when it's unpopular or costly. In an era where celebrity is often manufactured and carefully curated, Costner's grit, his occasional gruffness, and his deep-seated conviction stand out as rare commodities. He's an anachronism in the best possible sense, a man of substance in a sea of fleeting trends, a purveyor of grand human stories when the industry often chases fleeting fads. He doesn't just play characters, he inhabits an archetype, a symbol of American resilience and the pioneering spirit. His journey, therefore, isn't just a celebrity biography, it's a powerful parable for us all. It reminds us that even at the pinnacle of success, life's deepest heartbreaks are inevitable. It teaches us the profound value of holding on to our convictions, even when the world tells us we're wrong or that our dreams are too grand. Kevin Costner's story is a testament to the enduring human spirit, a spirit that can be wounded, tested, and pushed to its limits, but ultimately refuses to break. At 70, he stands not as a man defined by his tragedies, but as a man forged by them, a testament to the fact that true legacy isn't built on an unbroken chain of successes, but on the courage to keep riding, to keep dreaming, and to keep fighting for what you believe in, no matter the cost. He is and will forever be Hollywood's last true cowboy, embodying a timeless strength that resonates far beyond the silver screen.